3, 2, 1. Now, let's recommence. Let's recommence.
The commemorative services that take place across the country, whether it be Battle of Britain, Battle of the Atlantic, Remembrance Day services, are so important for our citizens to come out and pay their respects to the incredible sacrifices made by great Canadians, our veterans, our serving men and women in uniform, their families. These commemorative services are a tangible demonstration of that support, of that love and respect that Canadians feel for the sacrifices our veterans have made. It's so important that we see our citizens there in numbers, our school children. Everyone should attend these services on these important occasions to show that support directly for the incredible contributions that these great men and women have made to our country. Their service today, as in the past, is something that we simply rely on for our peace, our democracy, and freedoms. All that we enjoy today is directly attributable to those sacrifices.
Hi, everybody. Karl Kasgaard from Halifax 57 Rescue, reporting to you once again here in late October. And I wanted to, just to introduce our special guest, architect Liam O'Connor, the architect that built the beautiful Bomber Command Memorial in Green Park, London, right beside Buckingham Palace. And Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Karl. Pleasure to be here.
Good. I'll just give our viewers just a quick update about my worldwide odyssey of finding Halifax bomber parts, and then we'll go into our relationship and our history together with the Bomber Command Memorial.
Excellent.
And folks, so I'm leaving tonight to go to the UK for Halifax 57 Rescue and the Bomber Command Museum of Canada. And we've got a whole bunch of Halifax bomber parts that we're packing up, recovering, and shipping back to Canada so we can assemble our Halifax at the Bomber Command Museum. So I'll be able to give you reports from on-site all over the UK. I'll be ricocheting around in my hire van, and I'll give you those reports as soon as I can. And some major pieces have been found for the Halifax. And so stand by for those, and stand by to see it on TimeKeepers Canada. Liam, you're a hard man to get a hold of. I know you are going all over the world and you have these many beautiful projects that you have to do. But I'm thinking back to a little over 10 years ago. Well, I guess it would be more like 12 because it took years to organize the Bomber Command Memorial. And my group gave you the beautiful aluminium to work with. But can you take me back to the genesis of the Bomber Command Memorial in downtown London and just some of the major players that helped this wonderful memorial to come to fruition?
Yes, I can, Karl. And obviously, you had the interest in this to get in touch with us with the aluminium from that particular aircraft that was shot down in Belgium, and I'm sure you'll mention more about that yourself later on. But in the early days, it was a sort of a competition, really, an informal competition that was initiated by an organization called the Bomber Command Association. Now, these were in fact, ex-bomber boys who had flown in Royal Air Force Bomber Command. And the secretary of the organization was a Douglas Radcliffe, who actually did fly in Halifaxes too. He was a radio operator. And the chairman...
I must say he was our mutual friend, and what a joy he was to be with. And unfortunately, he's gone now. But Douglas Radcliffe becomes the spark plug.
He does indeed, as he was in many operations over Europe in the Second World War. And the Bomber Command Association was chaired by a squadron leader, Tony Iverson, who'd flown in the Battle of Britain in Spitfires. And after he was shot down over the North Sea, he retrained the bomber pilot and flew in the famous 617 squadron. And he joined it just after the Dam Busters raid. But Scampton was his HQ for that part of the war. And of course, he's famously responsible for the direct hit on the German battleship that was in the Norwegian fjord, the Tirpitz.
Right.
Which was a mission flown from Scotland, famously, towards the end of the war. So these were exceptional men, and to have an interview with such men to talk about a potential memorial for the 55,573 aircrew who didn't return was an extraordinary moment, really, certainly in my life as an architect and as an individual. Of course, I had designed a number of other significant memorials before that, but this was an altogether different enterprise.
That special time when you and I met to talk about the aluminium ingots for the Halifax going into the idea of the skylight. And when we were there, you had this great big large crane that could go up and was being used for construction, but we were able to use it as a man lift and go up and take video of the totally different perspective of up high, looking down at this beautiful monument as it rises out of the park with Portland stone, I believe it was. So that was exciting for me to go up and see that. And I thank you for allowing us to do that. It gave a totally different vantage point to building the memorial.
I am Liam O'Connor. I'm the architect and designer for the Bomber Command Memorial. Today we're having a little look at construction progress on the site with just under 15 weeks to the completion in mid-June, and looking at the structural stonework underway, the innovative stone entablature details over the Doric porticos to the loggia, which defines the central main mass of the memorial.
How much work is involved in something like this?
We've excavated about 1,000 tons of Portland stone, real Portland stone that is, from the Isle of Portland in Dorset, just off the south of England. We've got an extraordinary consistent quality of material to use, which is very lucky because not every project gets that. And we have probably one of the best stonework manufacturing firms I've ever worked with, applying a level of dedication and skill and high tolerance work that I haven't seen on any modern stone structures, certainly in my career.
Yes, this here's all Portland stone. A lot of London is Portland stone. Probably this is why they went for Portland stone in this job here as well. It ties in with the rest of all the buildings, and it's over in Portland Island. And
Are you proud to be here right now?
Absolutely proud to be part of the Bombers Memorial, indeed, really proud. So many young men give their lives that we could have the freedom we have today, and I think it's a very worthwhile memorial. Long time it coming, but it's a great achievement that is here.
There's an immense feeling of pride for me, my team and my office, the structural engineers and the rest of the professional team that have been involved in making this happen. And it is a big team. And it's such an unusual project to be doing in such a prestigious location at the beginning of the 21st century. One of the central concepts of the memorial was that we had a figure group on a plinth in the centre of the memorial. That sculpture group really dictates in many ways the proportions and dimensions of the internal central space of the memorial. The 7 aircrew figures gathered together, huddled together on a porphyry plinth in cast bronze at 9 foot high will probably be one of the most remarkable modern sculptures in the public realm in London in many decades. And I think arriving from Piccadilly through the loggia, not quite understanding what's about to hit you, I think the impression visitors will get when they arrive is one of awe. And that's what we hope will be achieved. And once you're inside the memorial, you don't see the faces of the figures. You have to engage with the memorial, move around it, and move to the south side of it before you see the expressions on their faces and understand who they are and feel the full emotional power of that extraordinary set piece.
You know, let me interject by saying it was so exciting to be working with you, and your headquarters, your brainchild, but we loved being able to assist. And when you came up with the ideas for the aluminium of the Halifax bomber, we just wanted to make sure that we could assist you in making it be the best that it could be.
No, it was an extraordinary symbolic moment in the life of the project, that suddenly there was this part of an aircraft that had been shot down with 8 aircrew still at their places. That you were like, what can you do with this? And I'm well, what do I do with a remnant of a real aircraft that was on a real mission with real men who died in it? I mean, it added a level of kind of symbolic power to the whole project, and it's probably the most fascinating story in the design of the monument itself. I think once you get over the significant planning issues and the political dimension about whether Bomber Command should ever have a memorial at all, and of course that notion rumbles on in various circles, and it will do for eternity. But that anyway. The volunteers who fought and died in Bomber Command served their country in a most remarkable way, and their bravery is now set in stone in the memorial that I had the privilege to design. So sure. I have no problem with that.
I think you combined everything, all those elements so well, and it's just came together as best as I could think could happen for a memorial. But I'm sort of a color commentator for all of your interesting inside comments. And wasn't there a problem with planning where people were protesting that there might be some trees in Green Park have to be cut down so that the memorial could be placed in an ideal spot?
Yes, there was. Obviously, there's famously a sort of regulation that monuments shouldn't be located in prestigious areas like royal parks in the centre of the city, and in a sense for good reason. And those rules were created at the end of the First World War. But somehow this seemed to gel in an entirely different way. And of course, you can't build in a beautiful parkland setting without some adjustments to the local landscape. And 2 trees had to be felled for the memorial. But 23 new ones were planted. So there are far more trees in that location now in the park than there were before we started. And 12 years or so on, it's all looking like it's being cared for, loved, and there's a natural sense of arboricultural regeneration around us. But also, one of the key things is that we've raised the level of the floor by 2 meters, and that potentially adversely affected 2 very significant trees that had a big townscape value. And we were able, working with some really great arboricultural engineers, we were able to raise that 2-meter level, and the trees are thriving today.
Yeah, and I think everyone picked up on the spirit of we must do this for these bomber boys that gave us our freedom. And why would we charge a silly penny for anything? Because we want to contribute. And I think of all the hundreds of thousands of people across the British Commonwealth that donated funds to cover those hard costs of the memorial. And it's kind of humbling if you think about it, that it touched so many lives. And
it really did.
We see now on any day in London, you will see hundreds of people come by, and some people bearing wreaths and notes for their bomber boys, maybe a grandfather or an uncle or something. So I really found it very heartening. And tell me, Douglas Radcliffe, our mutual friend, I've got a memory of him and I, and we, Doug was kind of, at that point, was a little slow on his pins, but he was still able to march on his own. And I remember in the spring of 2012, walking from the east side of Green Park towards the memorial through the daffodils. And I remember walking with him towards the memorial as it was being built. And he had some prophetic, philosophical words about this memorial.
Well, Karl, I can't talk for 50 or 100 years ahead, but even now, with the press and what is happening throughout the Commonwealth, there's an attachment and it's growing, and people are suddenly become aware who weren't aware before of these great losses. They were not aware, or indeed of all the other losses that took place during World War II. They will remember that and never ever forget it.
But it certainly is a big change. Very little parts of the runway are still here. The mess halls and living quarters are all gone. And perhaps one of the nice things about it all is, instead of an entry into war, as any airfield was, we have all these peaceful fields.
Yeah, but freedom doesn't come without the sacrifice of some.
Well, I think I'd have to go back and quote the Tunnel King, Wally Floody. And in very few words, he put it all together. He said, if you haven't got freedom, you haven't got anything.
Exactly.
So this is what gave us our freedom.
Yeah.
Many risked their lives fighting for freedom. Thousands lost their lives. They were young men, 19, 20, sometimes 25, and then sometimes only 17.
What do you remember about Douglas Radcliffe, wireless operator, Bomber Command, one of our last friends that flew in the bombers?
I mean, so many tales of his service as a wireless operator in Halifax. One thing that recurred often in the conversations I had with him for many years was his sense of loss of his friends who were shot down on a mission that he wasn't on, and they died and he survived, and he missed those men till his last breath.
Yes, and I've found this amongst families and relatives of bomber boys is that they search for information on their bomber boys, because if they survived, they wouldn't talk about it because as young men, think about it, 21 or 22, and for every friend you had in the Air Force, you lost 3 more in combat.
Yeah.
And so it was hard for them to deal with that at the age 21 or 22. And so it really is, I think the ultimate solution is the Bomber Command Memorial. And I'm just so pleased that we could help you in some small way to make this come to fruition.
Oh yeah, it's more than a small way. It's a significant part of the overall project, and everyone's aware of it. So Canada has its stamp on this in a very solid way. So,
Liam, I remember in 2012 when there was hundreds of thousands of people there for the dedication, the grand opening of the Bomber Command Memorial and by Queen Elizabeth II. And I wanted to know from you, the mastermind behind this wonderful memorial, how were you feeling on that day? And how did you feel about it coming to this wonderful conclusion in Green Park, London?
Well, it was obviously momentous, not just for me, but for all of the surviving veterans who came from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and other parts of the world. I mean, to see them all assembled there in thousands was a remarkable moment in London, actually. And Her Majesty the Queen was obviously delighted to be there. And she will have probably remembered that her mother, the Queen Mother, hosted events for Bomber Command Association members for many years. So it's something that she was certainly familiar with. And with the Prince of Wales, then the Duke of Edinburgh, and about 9 other members of the royal family, I think it was a special event for everybody, and a kind of sense of deep acknowledgement for that sacrifice that had been for so long forgotten. It's it's entered folklore now, and people come to just look at the ceiling of this monument, and it is beautifully made in these aluminium panels that was smelted down from the Halifax that you sent us via the Royal Canadian Air Force that delivered it to Scotland. So its journey from Belgium to you in Canada and then back to Scotland, flown by the Canadian Air Force, from Scotland to Grimsby to Norway, smelted down into thin panels and sent back to England to be assembled. It was a wonderful allied operation, really. There's so many people involved in that. And it's remarkable because that aspect of it didn't cost a penny. No one charged a single penny for all of their significant engineering inputs into bringing the whole ceiling into fruition.
Thank you for sharing that. And you were on the inside looking out, sir. And I can't compliment you enough on what you did.
Thank you, Karl. I appreciate that.
How you been doing now?
I'm doing well.
What do you think of the monument?
Yeah, I'll be right back. Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
It's about time, eh?
I just said to that English lady there, I said, after all these years for us guys to come back and be honored with something like this, it's just unbelievable. It's just...
Doing it in 3, 2, 1. Now, let's reconnect. Let's reconnect.
Follow me from the Alps to the airfields of the battle. Follow me and I'll tell you story of war. Have you seen her true love as he's lifting off the runway and he was was gone by the light of an October moon. Have you seen her true love as he's lifting off the runway, and he was gone by the light of an October moon?